It is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, focus on.
That's not necessarily a good thing to start
Yeah,
with.
they're stating
It
it
wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to.
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?
Yo, it's your boy 2 Cent. It's Thursday. It's 7:30 p.m. Oh, whoa. We're not supposed to have that. Can't say that. Can't do that live on television. My bad. We're live on YouTube tonight. I'm also giving a sneak peek to my friends over on TikTok because I know you guys love hearing what I say. You're just a little hesitant about following me over to TikTok. I'm sorry, over to YouTube, but you're going to come over because we're having a great time tonight. I think you guys love my shirt. Quick shout out to Proud Not Loud, who gave me not this shirt, but they gave me a pen that I wanted to show you guys. And then KC Creations gave me this one right here. Everyone gets a free plug. I love helping out small creators online. All you guys got to do is send me cool stuff. That's a pretty decent plug. All right, what are we going to do tonight? We're going to talk about great success. Is great success. Is number one in all the world great success. I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you missed it. I don't even know if you knew it happened, but Supreme Leader Biden came forth. They woke him from his nap. They injected him with his go juice, whatever that might be. These are called jokes, YouTube. I don't know this to be true. I'm not a doctor. I'm not asserting these things to be true. Once upon a time, we were allowed to make jokes. I like making jokes. So anyway, out came the president to tell us how actually successful he was. I got to tell you, you guys know that I could see the future. I didn't make predictions on this one, but I kind of thought he was going to do a soft reset. We talked a little bit about that on my TikTok live when you guys were on with me early. You're getting a sneak peek, not for that long. I'm going to kick you guys out of here in a minute. But I thought he was going to do a soft reset. At some point, he has to see that the agenda is not accepted by the country. At some point, he has to see that a 50-50 in the Senate and I think a 5 or 6 seat lead in the House is not a mandate to entirely recreate the country. That is a mandate, 2 December 2024. You know, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe not all the way to the White House, but maybe something. I do appreciate you guys jumping in here to interact with me. You would have to think at some point he has to know he does not have a mandate to recreate entirely this country. He has the exact opposite mandate. He has the mandate to work with the other side. And if you can't, then we want you to leave it the way it is. I mean, that's the default. The default is if you're in a gridlock tie of 50-50 and a near 50-50 in the House, then the country is telling you we are not wildly for change and we're not wildly for change the other way. The way it is right now is what's represented in our representative government. But somehow they believe, and I think they truly believe, they have a mandate to change the world, to change the United States at least, to take over voting, for the federal government to be in charge of your local elections, for the federal government to decide where your district lines are drawn, for the federal government to decide how you conduct your local elections. Let's see what we got here. WJ or Whisk 439 here. Thank you for jumping over here. I love when you guys come over. I'm sorry I got to do the thing with the glasses. Quick recap. We're not going to dwell on it. Thank you for following me over here from TikTok. For those that are new, I was in a plane crash. I've had damage to my eye. I've got a big bright light in my face. I wear sunglasses. Okay, here we are. We're going to have a good time. Not going to dwell on it. Life goes on. Awesome. I love you guys jumping over here. Thank you for telling me, Cass, that you like the sunglasses. Thank you guys for all jumping in here. Continue the conversation. I'll address them as we go along. I thought the president was going to come out and in a way soft reset and say, you know what, folks, we have 2022 ahead of us. What a great opportunity for us to move forward. And here's how we're going to move forward. And he can even like slightly come off course, just a little bit. I know it's a big ship. I know that we're not going to do a hard deport right now. We're a large vessel. It's going to take us time. You can spin this, you can talk this up, but he has no charisma. He has zero charisma. He has no leadership. He's never been in a leadership position. He's never been an inspiring figure, which is why he's run umpteen times, 49, I think it's 49 times that he's run for president. He's been in office since before we had the Senate in the first place. I think he was the first guy there laying the bricks. And this guy has never actually inspired anyone, which is why he was never elected before. Let's be honest. He was elected because he was not Donald Trump. And the electorate was ginned up for 4 years of Russia, 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 the end of our democracy, the end of our institutions, tyranny and the like. Vote for anyone, not Donald Trump. Okay, country does that. So now we have someone who wants to take over your voting. That's not an end to our democratic institutions, right? You have someone who wants to get rid of the filibuster rule. That's not taking down our institutions, right? You have someone who from Washington, D.C. wants to tell you where you can go, when you can go, what documentation you have to show to go there, what you have to wear on your face, what medical procedures you have to do things that you wanted to do, because that's not tyrannical. That's not tyranny. You have a slim of a majority, the slimmest of majorities that we've ever had, saying they want to tell you how to run your life. Nope, he doubled down on the rhetoric. You're absolutely correct. He didn't soft reboot here. And he totally could have, and the media was just salivating for it, chomping at the bit. All right, all you over at TikTok, you want to see the rest of this, and I know you do. I gave you the sneak preview. You're getting about 1 more minute, and I'm cutting you off. You're coming over to YouTube with me. You're going to give me that subscription. You're getting this freebie, and then I need you guys to come over with me. He had an opportunity. The media is chomping at the bit to get something. Because you remember, they advocated for the guy. They advocated for the guy in the sense that they didn't ask him any follow-on questions. For example, Joe Biden said time and time again, I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus. Quick follow-up, Joe. How? How, Joe? What's your plan? Joe Biden said, this president doesn't have a plan to defeat COVID, and I do. Quick follow-up, Joe. Real easy. How? Not one person. We know you're sitting in your basement. We know that you have a teleprompter in front of you. We've seen the reflection in things that were in your hand. We know you have the teleprompter. How do you have a teleprompter with answers to questions that we haven't asked you yet? It can't possibly be because we sent you the questions ahead of time. That definitely didn't happen. You hear the sarcasm. I gotta say goodbye to you guys. I love you. Thanks for the fire. I need you to follow me over to YouTube. I appreciate all of you being over here. Come on over to YouTube. You'll love it. They were complicit in it. They were a part of it. You might even say they colluded with him. When the Biden laptop came out, they shut you down if you wanted to talk about it. They took your account away. Misinformation. Misinformation. Which is why the First Amendment. Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. That's why the First Amendment is there. Say your misinformation, I'll say mine. Because it turns out things that I said months ago that were labeled misinformation are now reality. Imagine that. The Hunter Biden laptop comes out. It's Russian disinformation. No reason to look at it. Just get rid of that. Oh, it turns out it's real. Turns out it's not disinformation. Whoa, blah, 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 he's not the president. Blah, blah, blah. Well, his son's got business in countries that this president is going to have to deal with. Yet there are people who support him. He is dangerous. There are people who can't stop supporting him. And that goes into what I'm talking about right now. Question were definitely set up yesterday for Joe. Yeah, questions were definitely set up. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a second. Because the whole thing is set up. The media is absolutely complicit in what was going on, and they can't admit that they were wrong. So they're salivating. They're chomping at the bit. Joe, please pivot a little bit. You are not inspiring the nation. You don't have the wherewithal, the testicular fortitude to push something through. Your tactics are not working to sway people who disagree with you. Slightly shift. Let's get a win. There are variations of what you've proposed that you can win. Jen Psaki, you can go up there all you want and say the president tries for the hard things and we're not going to go for the easy things. Heck, she's far more inspirational than he is. Sometimes I listen to her talk and I'm like, well, damn, this sounds like a pretty good presidency, actually. I think they're getting a lot done to hear Jen Psaki tell the story. The media was complicit. in the election. Therefore, the media needs to be right. Someone a second ago said that people still support him and that's dangerous. They support him because they can't not. They can't possibly be wrong, because to be wrong is to be on the side of Bull Connor, is to be on the side of Jefferson Davis, is to be on the side of George Wallace. And then when the president gets confronted with that, I didn't say that he was Bull Connor, because you can't be Bull Connor. Can you read? Can you read? Did you read the actual transcript that I had? No, you didn't say, and I didn't say that you said that this person is actually Bull Connor. I said that they're like the people that voted with Bull Connor. Same thing. Same thing, dude. Same thing. And they can castigate you as much as they like, but they can't change, because then they would have to admit they were wrong. To admit they were wrong is to admit by default, Trump was right. You can't possibly have that. Ukraine got blindsided by a statement. We can talk about that here in a second, and we will. And I appreciate you interacting with me. Thank you so much. Make sure to give me a like, subscribe, send to your friends. Continue to interact with the content. It helps out a lot. We have more from the great success story that he gave us yesterday. He actually overperformed. I'm not sure if you know that. There were detractors that said, Joe, you can't possibly pull out of Afghanistan and leave behind billions. He said, hold my beer. Overperformed. Joe, while you're at it, you can't possibly, we got a video. All right, Juan's going to have a video for me here in a little bit. I'll give you the cue here in a moment. Joe, you can't possibly kill some civilians on the way out the door. Absolutely, I can. Outperformed. Hey, Joe, while you're leaving, can you go ahead and funnel? You can't do that. You can't funnel people into one area, making them a target for a terrorist attack. Oh, I can outperform that. All outperforming, all great success. Juan, go ahead, give me that video and we'll get a little reaction going.
It's also been a year of enormous progress. We went from 2 million people being vaccinated at the moment I was sworn in to 210 million Americans being fully vaccinated today. We created 6 million new jobs, more jobs in 1 year than any time before. The unemployment rate dropped to 3.9%. Child poverty dropped by nearly 40%, the biggest drop ever in American history. New business applications grew by 30%, the biggest increase ever. And for the first time in a long time, this country's working people actually got a raise. People, the bottom 40%, saw their income go up.
Oh, Joe, nothing but success. Thank you for that, Juan. I really appreciate you pulling that. Juan is a very busy guy. He's our producer. He's actually running the entirety of Right America Media. I'd like to give him a big shout out and a thank you. He's a veteran. He's a patriot. I really appreciate him. Give me a nice salute. I'll give you one right back. I'll give you that Colonel salute. All right, let's take a look at the big one. The vaccine. I'm hesitant to talk about it because I'd like to keep my platform, but I'll talk about what Joe Biden just talked about. He went from 2 million people to 210, I think was his number. Joe, you only work on the vaccine. Joe, can we look at some other measures? Joe, can we look at the idea of risk mitigation? Joe, are we allowed to look at these things, or is it simply vaccine only? It looks like he doubled down on it. He looks like he's just full force ahead, vaccine only. You kind of hit your peak on this, dude, and there's other measures that we can take. There are ways that we can go forward. And I'm not talking about efficacy. I'm not talking about whether or not people should take it. I'm not even talking about the vaccine itself. I'm talking about your application of it. So don't take me down, YouTube. You're only vaccine. And people are done with you being only vaccine. People aren't as dumb as you think they are, Joe. They are not. They know there are other things they can do. They know there are things called risk mitigation. Joe, you created 6 million jobs? Created? You keep using that word. I don't think that word means what you think it means. Created, Joe. Created. So there was nothing that happened that increased the number of unemployed. There's nothing that happened before your election where we went from the highest participation rate that we've ever had in this country, where we had more jobs for Black, brown, and and Asian and women than we've ever had before. Nothing impacted those numbers, Joe. You just walked in and just created these jobs from thin air, Joe. I know these reporters held you to task on that, or they did the exact opposite. I know that these reporters asked for you to be specific in what you did that specifically created these jobs. I know these reporters wanted you to be specific in the difference of created or the jobs came back. I know these reporters wanted you to be specific in the sense of, are these new jobs? Are these the old jobs? What is the worker participation rate? I know they did that, or no, they didn't, because you had your pre-approved list again. And why anyone believes any journalist anymore, or this administration at all, when he has a pre-approved list with pictures next to him, because there's no way he knows these questions ahead of time. There's probably a couple that have a pair and throw in a couple of questions that they didn't run through Psaki ahead of time. Why are they building a wall around the White House? You know, man, it's weird because it's like in the front of the building. And the fact that they're not talking about it, we talked about this last week. The fact that they're not talking about it is what makes it weird. Like, if there's a reason, could you just tell us? Because right now you're just leaving a void for us to talk about it and make it up. Joe ruined the country in just 6 months. How his followers? They're not followers, they're anti-Trump, and that's the big thing. All right, so we hit Joe, you're vax only, and there are people who know that there's other things that can be done. You use the word created, I think, a little differently than everyone. Like perhaps at least me, and I pretty much represent everybody. Let's see what else we got. You didn't talk about the participation rate at all. The participation rate is increasing because folks have found a way to originally use federal government money in order to stay home, which the press said wasn't the case, and I have the receipts for that. Then they said it's not the Republican states rescinding those federal benefits, as they call them, their handouts. It's not the Republican states rescinding that's causing the unemployment to drop. And then it actually was, because I know that's misinformation if you were to say the opposite. He did not create any jobs. He didn't create anything. These jobs were going to come back if you put a potato in there. If you put me in there, you were going to get these jobs back. Where are the fact checkers? Because remember, Facebook admitted they're fact checkers. It's opinion only. Because if it's opinion, they can't be liable. He didn't create any jobs. People are just going back to work. Exactly. And for how long did those people stay at home as they collected and augmented federal unemployment? You put small businesses in direct competition with the federal government. All Peppermint Patty do is talk in complete circles. She's actually really good at her job. She's really good at her job. She went toe-to-toe with Dana Perino today. And Dana Perino is a former press secretary herself. And I'll give Psaki credit. She's good at her job. She has a way of taking the parts of your question, because it's always there's always like a lead up to it, and she'll pick apart your lead up, and maybe sometimes that's her response, which is a very effective way to do it. She throws a little charm in there first, which gets the asker off balance, and then she'll segue to something else that's a positive that she likes. She's extremely good at her job. I don't like her, but she's still extremely good at her job. They want to talk about this drop in child poverty rate. Where? I know that these journalists, I think that's the word, held them to task. How did you drop that, Joe? Where did that come from, Joe? What policy, law, what dollars specifically lowered that, Joe? No, we didn't do that. It's this tax credit that they're getting early, and I can't wait for people to file their taxes this year and realize that they're not going to get these huge returns that they've gotten back for years and years because the government gave it to them ahead of time. They've made it a part of their budget now. It's supposed to be temporary. Once the government does something that's temporary, they're never going to pull it back. I expect this to be passed in a law shortly because they're going to say you want to put people back into poverty, which is why they did it in the first place in a temporary. So that way later they could say you want to change it and you want to take it away from people. And that has not driven inflation. Pumping money into people's pockets has not driven inflation. And then he wants to say that the American people got a raise. Still avoiding the fact of inflation. Nothing but great success. Enormous progress. Inflation did not eat up your raise. Actually, yes, it did. You got Bloomberg saying it. Man, the man Bloomberg himself ran as a Democrat. His publication is saying your wages have been completely eaten up and then some. I'm sure these journalists held him to task about the idea that it was transitory. Everyone in finance that he put forward said it was transitory, not transitory. Now it's going into next year. It's almost like they misled us. It's almost like they knew it and misled us, or they didn't know it and you don't know how to do your damn job. So maybe you shouldn't be there. It feels like one or the other. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of nuance in there. I actually don't know. The printing of money was doubled down on. He wants to print more money because inflation is transitory. Inflation is going to go away. His printing of money, he has said, he has economists who have said it's actually going to lower inflation. I love it when they say economists say, and we all go, oh yeah, economists say, oh yeah, they're a lot smarter than I am. Oh yeah, economists say. Who? Who are these economists? Is it people that you've appointed? Is it people in your cabinet? Is it people that you've given money to for research? Is it people that you've supported in their campaigns? Like, who are these economists? Is it like the list of some 200 plus doctors that want Joe Rogan silenced online? And then it turns out a lot of these doctors are like PhDs in like education or an engineer or other people not in the STEM world at all. They're listed as a doctor. Are those the economists? I really always want to know. Economists say, or you said, Joe. Like which one is it? Because I kind of feel like it's you said. And we haven't seen the worst of the inflation. You're right. And it's going to get worse. I really appreciate you, George Pettit. George Pettit actually saw me at a red light this morning. He was actually messaging me on the TikTok, and then he saw me at a red light this morning, and then he burned me off the line. The man is a speed demon. The way forward from here, it goes back to the beginning of the show when I thought that the president was going to do a soft shift, and then he could rely on the media to spin for him that it's not a shift, it's not a change, and whatever else is they need to tell the American people that it's all good, everything's fine, we're all fine here. I thought he was going to do that, and instead, nope, I want to keep trying to take over your voting rights, and I'm not going to give up on that because that somehow shows that he's a leader and a fighter. I'm not going to give up on printing more money because that somehow shows that he's a leader and a fighter because we can't talk about inflation. And then here's a big one, the Ukraine. I saw one of the greatest tweets I've ever seen from Ben Shapiro, who said, and he's paraphrasing, Joe Biden told the Ukraine, told Russia, you can go into the Ukraine as long as it's just the tip. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. That's basically what he said when he said he was willing to accept a minor incursion. Wow. I don't think you were supposed to say that out loud, Joe. I can only imagine what your communications team was doing in that moment. They were probably running for the hills. Some were barring and trying to nail down anything that was sharp. They were trying to close the windows to make sure people weren't jumping out of them. Joe, booby, some of these things you got to keep to yourself, dude. But obviously, this is why they don't put him out there forward. They thought that it would be a good idea that he could make the pitch. He's not charismatic. He's not a leader. He's not going to galvanize anyone. He's going to say stupid stuff. He's going to say the quiet part out loud. He's not going to get anybody inspired. And he had an opportunity here. He really did. Another opportunity he had would have been to do this before the last couple of weeks that he had, where he gets shut down in the Supreme Court rightfully, and then where the Senate won't change the rules in order to have a simple majority, have full tyranny over the entire country. Had he done a press conference before, then he could have maybe talked about his bipartisan infrastructure bill. There's a bit of a win there. And I don't know, maybe some COVID stuff. But the idea here is because their policy is not out there regularly, then you only put them out there every once in a while. And then here you have a scheduled press conference that happens right after the two worst weeks that you possibly had. And then you go out there and go, yeah, I'm going to do more of it. I'm absolutely just going to do more of it. And you're all going to love it. And this is what we're going to do. I don't think that's what he should have done, but this is where we're going. It's funny how he doesn't want to talk about the border. So it wasn't him. He wasn't running the press conference. Those journalists, those hard-hitting, objective journalists, were there to ask him the questions. Obviously, the questions were pre-screened. I know that. You know that. The man walks out there with a list every time he goes out there, and it's even got pictures next to it, and he gets asked the questions that he's already been prepared for. We did talk about the border just not our border. We talked about the Ukraine border, and we talked about the Ukraine border. Should we not talk about the Ukraine border? Probably not. I will let you folks know there are border crises going on all over this world right now. There are countries that are lobbing artillery over their borders right now. They do this stuff all the time. But yes, it's Russia. So I just don't want you guys to, I don't want you to understand this stuff happens, but we do have to be forceful in our response. I wouldn't say that response was forceful whatsoever. I'm not saying that we're supposed to accept these things. I just want folks to know these things don't just pop up. It's not nothing but peace around the world. There's constantly almost a war all the time. This is a very big one. Yes, we need to pay attention to it. But to say that with a minor incursion, now let's couple that. Go back months ago where he said, here's a list of all the things you can't do, Putin. And then guess what? Putin knows what to do. Here's the playbook. Thanks for the playbook. Now I know where you find yourself to be most vulnerable. Let me go ahead and hit those because you told me exactly what you don't want me to hit. Going back to the border, we can't talk about the border. I will say I found it astonishing to find out that TSA will accept your warrant if you're here illegally as proof of identification so you can fly in this country. Please wrap your brain around that. The TSA goes, can I have your ID? Yep, here's my wanted poster. That's me on the wanted poster. Look, it looks just like me. Oh, that's him. Let him on the plane. the federal government, the law enforcement's looking for this guy, but let's let him on the plane. We're not going to address that. There's absolutely no reason to address that. I can't wrap my brain around that whatsoever. I really want to, but I just can't. And I laugh at this stuff and we make jokes and we laugh about it together because it's so out of control. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to cry? But here's what we are going to do. Here comes the big pitch. Here's the one that you all know is coming. My big push for 2022. I'm going to pause like it's a child's educational show in the morning. What's the big push? We're going to vote. Do not rest on your laurels. We are not going to say we've got the big lead. There's been a 15-point swing on those that identify as a Democrat, that those now identify as a Republican. The red wave is coming. We're going to crush him. He's making Republicans every day. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. We're getting our voter integrity laws. Well, all of that is for nothing if we don't go vote. We are going to vote. We're going to talk to our neighbors about it because guess what? You're going to find out, like I did, that the neighbors both on my right and left, they're Republicans. They're MAGA people. And they were dying to talk about it, but we were all scared to talk about it. You're going to talk about it. You're going to get out and you're going to join your local Republican chapter. You're going to volunteer your time. Not everybody's got money. You got some time. You got some things you could do. You're going to be at the grocery store and you're going to hear somebody rumble about the prices. And you're going to say, hey, guess when these prices are low? Under Republicans. And here's a Republican that I support in the local area. Boom, done. You just turned your vote into 2 votes. And we're going to do that again. And we're going to do that again. And we're going to get out and vote. We're not resting on our laurels. The only thing that Biden has actually created is not jobs. He's created Republicans. And that is a fantastic thing. But we're not going to rest on our laurels and say that we're just going to win. We're not going to do what Hillary supporters did when they got complacent and believe the media who said, don't get out and vote, Trump supporters. Hillary's already won. They had the actual opposite effect, and Hillary supporters sat at home. We are going to get out and vote. This is absolutely going to happen. Juan, I see I've got a minute left. I see I've got my next show behind me. Are we ready to give a plug over to MyPillow? You ready for that? We are sponsored by MyPillow. The MyPillow guy gives us a sponsorship. You guys can run over there and use our promo code RAM, R-A-M, Romeo Alpha Mike, if you like. Get over there for some great products. I've got a MyPillow pillow, which is a little weird. I got some MyPillow sheets. They're great. They're comfortable. We love them. We're glad that he gives us an opportunity to be sponsored. It makes me feel kind of cool, other than the glasses. We started off with this. Maybe we could have a little fun, do a little magic trick. Who's coming after me? A good friend of mine, far better than me, far more intelligent. She has a great show coming up next. KSOK, who is deep in enemy territory of the Pacific Northwest. I see you here. You've been watching me for a while, making me very nervous. How are you tonight?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm really great. I could see your guest in the preview, and I'm so used to being in this room by myself, and I'm like, I have an audience. He's paying attention. Is he laughing? Did he think that was funny? So I saw him chuckle a little bit. It gave me a little bit of feedback.
Oh my gosh. And I love the shirt. That is fantastic.
This was sent to me from a follower. My followers might be better than your followers. maybe, but
I
probably.
think so.
Tell
Well, you know, my
tell
thing,
us who
I
your
don't give
guest
my
is tonight.
address out.
Oh, I did
We
a
have
PO
Harrie
box.
on. I know. I need to get a PO box. I do because I would get some cool stuff like that. But
Some
yeah,
neat
we have an
boxes.
amazing guest coming on. We have Harrie coming on, and we connected through Instagram, and he's in the textile industry. But we're going to go in a really cool direction with his knowledge, and so it's going to be a really interesting show. So I hope everyone hangs
Spoiler
on
alert.
for it.
Spoiler alert for the viewers. Harrie
Okay.
is Harrie. I can see the man right now. He has a beautiful beard, and I think he has a
Oh
bit of a
my God.
caged beast trying to free himself from underneath here, and
Oh,
I'm not angry about it.
are
KSOK,
you
I'm going to
jealous?
get out of here before I turn away all of your viewers. Thank you to everyone else who saw me tonight. KSOK, on to you.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. I just enjoy his presence so much. That is hysterical. He caught me with Harrie is Harrie, and but who doesn't love a hairy chest? Who doesn't love a beard? Come on, it's masculinity at its finest. So thank you for that, Keith. Welcome to KSOK Uncensored. We do have an amazing guest coming on. Yes, his name is Harrie, and yes, he's a little bit hairy, and good for him. Gonna have some good conversation, but I just want to bring something up. I mean, can we just give a round of applause for that 9-year-old girl that was arrested by the NYPD Oathbreakers for going to the Museum of Natural History and not furnishing a vaccine passport? I mean, I watched the video of that little girl being escorted by 2 police officers with many more around to this police car. I mean, I have a daughter who's 11. I have a 7.5-year-old son. And I mean, I couldn't even begin to wrap my mind around what that little girl must have been thinking at that point in time. But she was stoic, and I just felt this sense of pride, and her bravery was just really amazing to watch. And then she was actually let or freed or let out today, and there was a video of that too. And um, if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend checking it out because we need more of our youth, and she's extremely young, but we need our youth to understand what they're facing right now and to be mentally prepared for some challenges that they're going to face, and how to handle them without wavering. So that really gave me chills. So hi, Kevin. So I just want to go ahead and pause there. We might be able to bring that video up later, but I want to go ahead and bring Harrie in. Come on in, sir.
Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Although you might know that I actually am a COVID patient, which
You and I both.
we all yeah, which means that we have no medicine or doctor's advice at all, right? We just stay home and have uh, chicken soup.
Yeah, exactly. That is the funny thing. So for viewers, I happened to catch the Rona while I was in Texas on vacation, and then the whole family got it. And I mean, it's just we're just all sharing in our misery together. But I'll be honest, at least for my family, thankfully
Mhm.
it's been like a mix of like a cold and a little bit of some flu symptoms, right? And
Yeah,
I'm on day
yeah,
11 now. I know you and I spoke briefly, and you're into it a bit as well.
right.
um and we thought it was important to share that with you guys because I feel like there's so many people that, including, like, I was fearful a bit, right? Like, you just
Mhm,
don't know how it's going to affect you, and it affects everybody differently.
mhm,
And there's always that the unknown is scary, right? We just, what you don't know, you're going to be afraid of generally. But
yeah.
I'm just curious, Harrie, if you mind, like, if you don't mind, excuse me, sharing really how your experience has been. Obviously, you can keep it surface,
Okay.
but just within reason to maybe settle some minds.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, which is we have been conditioned, for lack of a better word, 2 years of talking, of listening, of hearing about this virus, um, and then what has happened is that I think there's a little stigma when you get it. There's like, oh, really? You got it. Maybe there's what's wrong with you. And of course, we know the priority of what's wrong with you. By some people, it's, did you get this?
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't, then that must be why, right? All this. So, but I can say that it's not that bad this time. I did have it last Christmas to New Year's, and now I have it, directly 1 year later again. And I think I can say that it's probably 25% of what it was the first time. I've been through a lot of things that medically are pretty challenging. I'm a cancer survivor, and so I have that to compare to. I know what it feels like for a doctor to make me sick, right? There's
Right.
professional poisoning. You pay for it, and I guess I know what hard is because of that, and so when you get something that a doctor doesn't even have anything to give you, it can't be that bad, right? At least there's some hope there. My hope is that anyone who gets it isn't too afraid. That there's a lot of reason to be hopeful when you do get it, and that it's just some days from now, and I won't have it most likely, and so this time it's just a simple, like, I get what called a morning temperature, morning fever, like 99 and a half to 100. And then I get, I take a very easy nap. It's not hard to nap.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's almost like a gift, right? But I've been sleeping well. I don't have a sore throat. My wife had that before last week. She had pretty bad, upper respiratory or always coughing type thing. I don't have much of a cough either. So let's say I'm doing pretty good.
Well, that's so good. It's funny. I totally what I've been my approach, wow, tongue-tied here. It has been really focusing on the symptoms. Like, let me manage my symptoms, not the label, because it's so quick. It's so easy and it's so quick for a lot of our brains to go, I've got COVID, right? And so for me, what I kept having to do is say, okay, manage your symptoms, just stay hyper focused on what you're feeling, nothing else. And that's helped me just feel really calm, I would say, for the most part. And
That's right.
and that's what I suggest. I mean, and it's one of those things where I've just been locked in my house for the last week, and been ordering in, and I've rode the wave, and I'm almost done, and I feel okay today. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I definitely went through. I would say the worst for me was definitely like the skin sensitivity. And if anyone else is feeling like the ongoing skin sensitivity, I would highly suggest, like, this is something I practice Wim Hof, which is like breathing and cold water therapy. But my nerves just felt fried. And so what I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been like babying my body, right? Like, I've just been like babying my body. So what I did is, because my nerves just like, they were hot, cold, hot. This is going to sound a little crazy, but I was literally like slapping, like what you would see before a fight, MMA or boxing. And I just woke up all of my nervous system. And overnight, I literally don't have that skin sensitivity anymore. So that worked for me. I feel like they needed to be kind of just slapped awake. And I have heard that is something that people deal with, is the ongoing skin sensitivity. So anyway,
yeah,
well,
it's pretty wild. Everyone has all sorts of stories, so it's good to just pay attention to those people that God puts around you when you get it. Maybe there's a reason they're there, so it's worth listening to everyone's story.
yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you sharing with me, and I hope folks watching had a few takeaways, and maybe we can help you feel a little bit better about it. But I want to go ahead and pivot into what we originally intended in talking about, because we just recently found out we were both on the same page with riding the COVID train. But so Harrie, where all have you lived? I hear that that you've been
Yeah, it's
around a lot of places, a lot of experiences.
Yeah, that's true. And partially because I ended up working in the textile industry, which is an industry that is very global now, very much so. Thank you, NAFTA. And because of that, production went to other countries. And so in addition to the places I'll tell you I've lived, I've traveled to, gosh, it must be over 40 countries or some. It's a big number, Yeah, it's a lot. And so, but I'm a first generation American. I had parents that are Dutch and a brother who was born in Holland, and they moved over here. And I was born in Anderson, South Carolina, which is a lovely
Okay.
part of the country. And actually, I don't live that far from there right now, but ended up moving to Massachusetts, and I grew up there. And I grew up just south of Boston, and that was really a meaningful part of my life. I had a good upbringing there. I have Dutch parents, so I think they fit in to Massachusetts really well. I grew up basically learning that we need to help people who don't have stuff. Okay. And one way to do that is taxes, right? Everyone has their opinion of taxes.
Yeah.
I've actually seen recently someone said taxation is theft. I've seen that. I get it. I think I understand what they mean by that. I'm okay with getting roads and things like that. But socialism is what it was over there, and I think that
Right.
So I learned about all that, and grace and mercy for others, that kind of thing. Although right now there's not a lot of grace and mercy going on in the Netherlands right now, and so it shows that stuff is all fun and games until someone is afraid, right? Fear changes everything, and so after Massachusetts, I moved, and I had a son who was born in Salem, Mass. I lived in Salem, which is really cool.
Nice.
I ended up in Boston. When you have children, you move slowly away from the city. You have to get a bigger
I can
house.
totally get that.
You move further away. There's probably a linear relationship. So I ended up in Haverhill, Mass, on the border there and of New Hampshire, and did move down to Bucks County, Pennsylvania, for a job after I got my MBA. And after people get their MBA, you're supposed to get another job, right? That's what people say. Everyone's desperate to make more money. If someone would just tell us in the beginning that it's not really your income that's the problem, it's your debt. And my gosh, if people just understood that you can live with more cash than most people with huge houses if you just don't spend more than you make. So anyways, there's my.
I know, such a concept, right?
And now I can't really say, because I ran for the money too. So then I took a job and moved to the Houston area in Texas, near the water on the southeast side in League City, Texas. And it's a wonderful place to be. I learned to love Texas. That is where Jesus met me. And so that's
awesome.
a big part. Yeah. And I had a lot of good jokes. When I first got on Facebook, my friends back in high school said, "Did you have to go to Texas to find Jesus?" I said, yes. Indeed,
yes, I did.
I hope others, if that's why they go, I hope that was a good thing for them. And then after 12 years or so, I had divorce. I went through cancer treatment. It was pretty remarkable experience, to almost die and all this thing. Be told you're going to die. This interesting thing about cancer hospitals is everyone in the waiting room will die if they don't get treatment, barring a miracle. Wow. It's a very strange reality, right? You're sitting in a waiting room with all these people, and we all have a death sentence, right? Wow. So that was amazing experience for me. Moved after some time. I got married to my current wonderful wife. And we have a blended family, and we moved to Waco, Texas, where I lived for the last almost 4 years. We had a hope and a dream to build a textile production, a textile facility in Waco. somewhere in the middle of this really dense population between Dallas, Austin, and Houston. There's over 24 million people living, and that location is growing every day with people from everywhere else, right? And so we did have that dream. It didn't happen there, to no fault of anyone in Waco. We had a lot of help from everyone there. The community was very good. And then moved here to Eastern Tennessee, where I live now, near Cleveland, Tennessee. We moved here because our church is here, and we decided, in the last 2 years, I think there hasn't been a person alive that hasn't wondered, am I doing the right thing? Am I ready?
Right.
What happens when the electricity goes out? What happens if some problem occurs? We're all used to a few day events like hurricanes and these type of things, but are we used to the government telling us we can't have our job open? We can't go to work.
Right.
We're not used to that. And so
no, we're not.
I think, and in the textile industry, we like every industry in this whole world has responded to what's going on. And the textile industry in particular were tasked with figuring out these early on. They called them, I talk with retailers and brands quite a bit and try to help them make better products like apparel or whatever it is. And early on, there was this thing called confidence building apparel that was needed. People were worried that you and I wouldn't go to the store because we're so scared, right? And that has turned out to be not the case. So that was, we all had to do something, everyone. And then of course, what came up was masks, right? Why not? Isn't that a great idea, right?
Wait, so what's a confident? I'm confused. What's confidence building apparel?
Sure. So you had a point where they closed the stores. And so that's never happened to people in our lives. So the average person doesn't know what that means. What do you mean you close the store? Well, we close the store because you might get sick. Am I going to get really sick? Yeah, you might die. Right? So, okay. And now you've trained, and I used to watch the news. I don't anymore, which is part of why I found you. I look around online for, somebody to share some news that doesn't make me cry myself to sleep. And I think, although I don't want to go to bed angry either. Okay. So
I know.
Can we all just,
we have to pick one. I just choose to laugh these days. I'm like, let me find somebody who makes me laugh, like, before bed. So
laughing is great.
It's tough though.
I think that's why we all watch Seinfeld again on Netflix, right? We all do that.
Yeah, seriously.
If you're in my age group.
Exactly.
So
I was watching Reno 911
building,
before I went to bed.
So consumer studies, the brands, the retail stores, it's not like it's already hard enough, right? We've been buying from Amazon. We've been buying online for a long time. The retail stores were struggling already with people coming and spending time. And what happens is there's a recognition of the more time you spend in a store, the more likely you're going to buy something, this type of thing. So what was being considered is maybe we should have masks or gloves or something that will help protect these people, both from other people and from, at that time, it was like maybe the surfaces are covered, right? So it was like the board was building, on the walls and and that was being considered. But I like to say that Americans, as soon as the stores open, they jump back in. And I honestly feel like that's a big sign of hope, that people aren't really that crazy. They're not that afraid. You still want to go buy some clothes. And so, of course, the secret to where the men's clothes are in the store, because they know if you've seen a track of where a woman walks in the store, it looks like a video game of somebody going through the woman walks through the entire store.
Right.
Because they want to see everything. They're smart shoppers. The men, they walk into a store generally anyways. This is, of course, percentages here. They know they just want a pair of underwear, and they go right. They have to go to the back of the store. We've learned that a long time ago. Men have to walk for their stuff. We got to go all the way to the far corner. They make
That
us
makes
do that.
sense. I'm like visualizing my favorite store, and yeah, that's about how it is for the men's.
Yeah, and they know how many people take a right turn when they walk in the door. So the stuff that's immediately to the right, I think it's like 85% of us go to the right. And
That's so, I love all
anyways,
that
it's
stuff.
interesting.
I think it's so
So
interesting.
yeah, so these businesses, in a time in the industry, I'm part of the industry. I'm part of the American Association of Textile Chemists and Colorists. It's not something you hear every day, but we are a small and proud group. It's actually the largest professional network of textile professionals in the world, and AATCC. Textile people love to talk, by the way, and they can't make small abbreviations. So AATCC is what you got.
As good as you get. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's other groups as well. AAPN, IFA. There's quite a few organizations that represent each part of the textile industry. And what we know is that if a business is down 5%, 5%, 10%, it was a disaster, a total disaster.
Right.
There are companies that were shut down for months, right? You couldn't get in the stores, and they were down 50%, 60% in sales, some
Wow.
80%. You don't that doesn't you don't come back from. There's no like, you can't give people checks and then help a company that needs to make $5 billion, right?
Right.
It doesn't, yeah, you got to just keep them open, right? And,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
Well, I even heard, and you probably were impacted by this too, or you're least aware, that there was a national foam shortage for quite some time, and that like furniture,
mm,
furniture made to order was way backed up, like 8, 9 months.
yeah.
Um, Sounds like that's somewhat rectified itself, but I mean, it
So,
impacts, people don't realize it impacts
yeah,
a huge amount of people, huge amount of businesses, employers.
yeah.
It's
So
nuts. It's
what comes
absolutely
to
nuts.
mind when you think of foam? It's very light, right? It's mostly air.
Right.
When you put stuff in a big container over in Asia to ship here, are you going to want to put something that's dense, heavy, and get paid more money for it, or do you want foam?
Bingo.
And
Bingo.
you'll notice toilet paper, it's light. You need to, I mean, how many bags of toilet paper go in a truck, right? Versus cans of beef or something.
Right.
And the grocery store people have been honest about it. They say, we do put a spot for things like toilet paper or foam or what, things that are extremely light, but they need to put food in these
Right.
containers. And so containers have gone from being like $3,000, $4,000. I heard that they went to $16,000 each just for the shipping,
Oh my
just to
goodness.
rent the.
That's insane.
So yeah, and we don't want to pay more than $10 for our T-shirt, right? So it's
Right.
hard.
Exactly. So I'm curious, where did your passion for textiles come from?
That's a great question because we have a joke is you're in AATCC or you're in my industry when you don't know what to tell your neighbor what you do, right? Every time
Nice.
you tell your neighbor what you do, it's a different story. And
Yeah.
I actually went to university, North Carolina State University College of Textiles. They have it's the largest college of textiles in the world. And so I actually went to university and learned textile chemistry. My major was Bachelor's of Science in Textile Chemistry, and it was a dyeing and finishing concentration. So I have done what I went to school for, which is
Hey, there you go.
yeah, it's sometimes unique. It's really a trade.
Yeah.
So when you leave that school, you
Yeah.
really are useful immediately to factories or
That's
mills.
awesome.
Yeah, and I recommend it to people who are really looking to learn a skill that we're going to need to know. So anyways, before I jump into the reshoring U.S. Textiles, I would say that that's where it came from. I was actually at a different school, which I didn't do well in. I was doing chemical engineering. And for people who want to do chemical engineering just because your father is one, don't do it. That's my, if you learned anything today, it's don't do it just to please someone, please. Because engineering is very exacting. And if you're more of an artist, you like to bake and cook and stuff like I do, which a lot of textile people are, because our science is very artistic. There's a part of it, there's a lot of color involved, and we talk about things like hand. How does it feel? And that's what AATCC does. They have a book, and it gives you numbers for things. They have test methods that will prove what color something is, or if it stays there after you wash it in the laundry. And so the difference between a chemical engineer and a textile chemist is, I've explained this, is that you hire a plumber at your house. The plumber comes to your door, you're a chemical engineer. You open it for him, you show him where the toilet is, you say, I think I know the problem. You've already analyzed it. It's like that progressive commercial, right? Where you need to learn not to be like your dad.
Right.
You go into the bathroom, he starts working, and you're taking notes. The chemical engineer is taking notes. He's got it. Next time, I don't need this guy. I can do this. No big deal. He's got the drawing and everything is written down. He knows the name of things like lug nuts,
Yeah.
all this great stuff you hear when you watch This Old House, the great words, So a textile chemist opens the door, points out where the bathroom is, and say, I'm going to go back to the kitchen, finish making dinner and the bread that I was going to make. That's it. So
I love it.
We're not
All right,
into exact things.
I know. I think that's fantastic. And I know, unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes left, and we have so much more we could talk about. But I just want to say, my mom used to be a buyer for 30 plus years. And so I went on buy trips with her, and it was really exciting to be able to, one, they work so hard. We went to, Manhattan. We're walking just all over for so many different appointments with vendors, but it was really cool. And I did hear them using terms like, what's the hand like? And at one point I went on a buy trip with her when she was a coat buyer, and she was doing the fur coat buy. And that was interesting to meet furriers. And then that was when I made my mistake I tried to shake a hand of a man who was a Hasidic Jewish man, and I got denied my first handshake ever, which I totally understand now. And it was good to learn that, there's cultures out there that don't shake hands, and why. But me as a young 20 something at the time, you're like, oh, it's like the weirdest feeling when someone denies to shake your hand. But then you understand it, and you're like, that's the cool culture part of it. Like, they don't touch anyone outside of their wife, right? So it was just really interesting. And so it's cool to be able to hear you talk about your end of textiles, because I've been on the buy end before. And it's a fascinating industry.
Yeah, and what I was hoping is that people need to start asking around or thinking of, how can I buy something that's made in America on the textile side?
Yes.
We do need to be able to produce our own clothes here. We need to have a little bit less reliance on imports, and it will take, not that you should purchase something that's not worth it, but it will take probably $1 or $2 more from a consumer to purchase. So it is a passion of mine, and if folks want to reach out to me about it, they are I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Oh, I'd love that. Where do people find you?
I am the only Harrie Schoots in the world. That's the Dutch name, and it's spelled the way it is, so you can't miss me. If you type my name in on LinkedIn or Instagram, you'll find me there.
Okay, awesome. We have the spelling right up there on the screen for anyone who wants to go reach out to Harrie. I'm really glad you brought up that from a career standpoint, because it's really important that people understand you can actually go to school for something and have it be something you can step into and actually start working, versus like a psychology degree, right? I think that's a great takeaway.
You can go on to aatcc.org, and there's a list of student chapters. And there you'll find about 20 schools around the country that actually have programs like merchandising or product development in the apparel space.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on. This is a really interesting show and a little different than what we've done before, but I really like that. It's a new take on what we can discuss on this. It doesn't have me. I needed a break in that, Harrie, and I appreciate you coming on, even though you're not feeling 100%.
Yeah,
So
it's fine. And there's a
appreciate you.
picture of a guy, if I'm pointing in the right direction, the My Pillow, he has succeeded in producing textiles in America. So they
There
happen to
you
be
go.
square, they're pillows or things, but
Yeah.
I'm proud of him, and I have his products in my house too. So I think he's a great example of what I was trying to talk about.
I love that. I love that. That is a perfect tie-in. Thank you so much, Harrie, and we will be in touch. And you have a wonderful
Thank you.
evening. All right, thank you. All right, love that because he's right. Here we go. We have Mike Lindell, My Pillow. As you guys probably saw, he has banks dropping him right now just because of who he is. So let's support him. If he needs support, it's now. We need to support him right now, and we have a discount code RAM. Again, Mike Lindell, an amazing patriot. He doesn't stop fighting for our country. And he does produce a lot of his stuff right here in the US. So check him out, you guys. And thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you next Thursday.
Well, hello, friends and family. You are watching the Elsa Kurt Show, which I'm pretty sure that makes me Elsa Kurt, unless I've got amnesia or something, but I'm Elsa Kurt. How are you guys? I am doing great, and I have a great guest today. I'm so excited for you to meet her and listen to her. Her name is Courtney Giels, so we're going to get right to that. All right. We don't play around here. We get right to it. We have Courtney Giels here. She is running for Congress in North Carolina's 6th District. And you're going to correct me if I got any of that wrong, right?
Yes, that was all perfect. Thanks for having me on, Elsa.
Thank you so much for coming on. So so a quick check-in on this. If I read right, this is a new district because of redistricting, yes?
Yeah, North Carolina's a whole cluster right now. It is technically a new district. It was District 4, which was the incumbent is David Price, who is retiring, thankfully. A lot of people want him out. So he's retiring, and it's now District 6, which is most of the same counties. It's Orange County, Durham County, and then a piece of Wake County in North Carolina. Generally a pretty blue district, but I think there's definitely room for movement there. But North Carolina, unfortunately, has a lot of lawsuits going on, and they have pushed our primary out from March to May, and now, as of a couple days ago, to June, because the Democrats say there's gerrymandering. But as you well know, if you look at something like Illinois, that's true gerrymandering. If you look at our maps, I think that they look relatively fair, but the Democrats don't like it, and our Supreme Court is run by Democrats, so it should be an interesting turnout to what happens with that.
Absolutely. And this is so indicative of what's going on across the country with I've just lost some lighting here, but that's okay. Indicative of what's going on across the country with, every time the Democrats don't like something, they want to change all of the rules and rewrite all of the rules. So no surprise there. So I love hearing the backstories of how people got to where they are. Now, your background is in nursing. Are you currently a nurse?
I'm not working right now. I was a travel nurse for probably 5 years, but the last contract I was working was this past summer. So,
okay. And so nursing, politics, not quite the same lane, right? So what was the trigger? What sparked the that this is the moment, that right now is the time that I need to do this? What was it for you?
Yeah, well, I think there's a buildup there related to nursing that you see in the hospitals where administrations for the past few years have really prioritized profits over quality patient care. And I've seen that in a multitude of examples at my job where something that administration, a decision that they make is directly affecting how I'm able to give quality care at the bedside, whether that's staffing, whether that's materials, whether that's hours. It's just really, or even teams that they've cut out that were really helpful to quality. That was kind of something that was really starting to get at me as really a patient advocate, which is what all nurses should be. I really can't stand bad patient care. And so I've seen this trend in the hospital that way. And now I would say in the past year, maybe even 2 years, there's this trend where the federal government is making similar decisions from a high level and making executive orders and laws that directly affect our quality of life on the ground. And they're made from so high up that these people are so disconnected with real life that they don't even know how to make decisions for real people. And we need to bring down that power of the federal government. And I would say that's like the overarching theme of the buildup. But backstory that I'm guessing you don't know is my husband, kind of a long story, but he ended up being the lead data expert on the Trump versus Raffensperger case in Georgia with election integrity. So we were seeing real data. He was running the data, he was producing the data, and that was not what was being given to the public. So I think just the idea of censorship and the things that we're seeing, how Google is just taking things down where you can't even find it, was incredibly irritating around that time. And me being in the hospital with COVID and seeing how that was really just being politicized so badly, and the CDC was changing their mind on recommendations and giving bad recommendations half the time, or telling something that was going on in the hospital that wasn't actually going on in the hospital, was infuriating to me. And I would say the straw that broke the camel's back was both my parents are respiratory therapists. So if you don't really know what that job is, it's pretty much a nurse that just deals with breathing. They're not a nurse, but they kind of function similarly, but only deal with the respiratory system. So they are on the front lines of COVID. Every single dying COVID patient, my parents are taking care of them. And they were both told on the same day with different hospital systems in North Carolina, Duke and UNC, for those of you who are local, that they were going to lose their jobs if they didn't take the vaccine. And I would say that was the point at which Courtney got very mad and realized, you know what, we cannot keep taking this from the federal government. They cannot keep mandating things and telling us what we're going to do with our medical care. At a certain point, it's your health over, that's really the only thing. It's funny working in the hospital. People can talk the talk all day and be confident as all get out, make tons of money. But the second they get a cancer diagnosis or they get a lupus diagnosis, their whole world has changed. And we cannot continue to allow the federal government to affect our healthcare this way.
That's so true. And you see these and hear these awful stories of people with non-COVID issues, like things like cancer and other serious conditions and ailments, and they're not getting the treatment. They're either not seeking the treatment. If they're unvaccinated, they're afraid to go to these hospitals because of the responses from the staffing or from really administration, and not allowing them care or denying them care, I should say. You just hear these insane stories. Now, in your experience with the nurses that you've been involved with and doctors and general staff, is it split down the middle? Is there more people that are against the vaccines? Like what has the climate been like?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised when the vaccine rolled out how quickly the healthcare community just jumped on that. And to be honest, from my perspective, I think there's a high burnout rate with COVID. There was already a high burnout rate in the healthcare field, but they had been working their tails off trying to take care of these people. And this was kind of a beacon of hope, a beacon of light, especially for people who are not Christians. I think that if you're not a Christian, and I am, there's this fear of dying that's just deep within someone that if there's some ticket out of death, they're going to take it. And unfortunately, our world is trending that way. That's very not God honoring and not Christian. And so a lot of people are terrified of death and think anyone who doesn't care about other people dying acutely, they just don't care about other people. And so I think that the initial response was gravitating significantly toward the vaccine. And I even had a coworker the first week was like, well, Courtney, don't you believe the science? And I was like, you just made that political. Thank you. Of course, I believe the science. I don't believe in political science necessarily, but I believe in biology and chemistry, and I'm using my own scientific brain to make my decisions. So I think that unfortunately the medical, especially people who've been to the ER, and I'm an emergency room nurse generally. I've worked a couple other kind of jobs, but that's usually where I land. And there definitely have been a lot of stories that I've heard from people that have come in as a patient and been yelled at by the healthcare workers in the emergency room for not getting the vaccine. And I think that is disgusting. And I think that people will say, you know, maybe that's a form of non-compliance, but we deal with non-compliant patients all the time. That's literally what our bread and butter of the hospital is people who are non-compliant with their healthcare routine. They're not taking their hypertension medicines. They're not taking their diabetic medications. Both of those reasons can put them on dialysis. Then they don't go to their dialysis, and then they're admitted to the hospital because they need that help. So the idea that healthcare workers don't want to take care of people because they could have prevented being sick is absurd. And so I think, unfortunately, our healthcare workers are going towards the vaccine, but I also know, and I'm sure you understand this, as a conservative, you're just not allowed to talk anymore. So I think there's a lot of people who are not in agreement with the way things are going that are in the hospital, but they need to keep their jobs and they have to keep their mouth shut.
Yeah, that's I tell you, boy, you made so many phenomenal points, so accurate on all of them too. And that is such a huge factor in this, that people who at their core, their belief system tells them, and their common sense tells them that this is wrong, yet they are, you know, understandably, they're like, this is my livelihood. They don't see themselves as having a choice because they see themselves as just one person. And of course, a person with bills to pay and family to take care of and, you know, mortgages to pay and all those things. So they can't afford to lose their job. They feel like they can't afford to take that stand. And that is it truly is appalling that people are sacrificing their values and their health, really, for the sake of going along because they feel like they have no choice. I tell you, and the hypocrisy of everything, of course, all of these things are so, I think I can speak for so many conservatives when I say I am just awestruck in a terrible way at how quickly this has happened. And you made a really great point too about the fear of death has overruled our core need for freedom, freedom of choice. And
Absolutely.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Fear of death has dominated the conversation. And the people who masterminded this, they are brilliant in the most evil way. And it's terrifying. And I have to thank you and people like you who have decided to really, truly step up and say, not on my watch. I'm not going to allow it. It's incredibly brave because your opposition is huge.
Yeah. You know, I really appreciate that. I think that there's some interesting, you know, dynamic there that I think that idea of just not being able to talk and not feeling like you can talk, we're really trending toward a path that people are just not standing up, like you said, for freedom. But I also think that lingo and those words that, just like you kind of touched on, that just idea of people, you know, keeping people safe. Well, that's a great slogan. And you know what? There's also this idea of, you know, you don't want to die. Okay, well, let's play off of that for a second. Do you also want to, when you actually do have a heart attack, like you said, or you do have colon cancer, or you actually have something, you know, I had a job before COVID, you know, I joke, my husband's an accountant and I'm a nurse. He doesn't actually work in taxes, but he could work in taxes, and I technically work in death. And that's the only ultimate thing that never stops is death and taxes. And so, you know, when it comes to hospitals, it's like they are just going down, down, down when it comes to quality and when it comes to staffing. And what people don't realize is they think this COVID vaccine is the end all be all. Well, guess what? You're going to lose so many healthcare workers. You've already lost so many healthcare workers. They're starting to put people in roles that are not qualified. They're putting nursing brand new nursing grads. This is a true story. I'm not going to tell you who told me this because I don't want to get that person in trouble, but they have brand new nursing grads who have been trained very quickly in the ICU, and these are in top level hospitals, who are now training new grads in the not in the emergency room. I'm sure that's happening too, but in the ICU. And this is like high level stuff. So you think you're getting this quality patient care because you're in the ICU and you have a one-on-one nurse. Well, when that one-on-one nurse just got out of nursing school, I'm sorry, but you're not getting quality care, and your grandma or your mom or your daughter is going to die because you pushed people out of their jobs that could give you that quality care. And so maybe we need to turn the script around and say, you know, death is a big deal, but we need to pay attention to what we're doing to the hospital system right now with the decisions that our government is making that is going to hurt people in the future when it comes to them being hospitalized.
Absolutely. It's just incredible, and it's so mind-blowing. And of course, you just touched on it, that, you know, the irony of ironies here is that they fired healthy, good nurses and staff, hospital staff, because they were unvaccinated. And now we have, you know, a shortage of nurses. And now, you know, now, as you're saying, we basically have less than fully qualified nurses doing jobs that they should not be doing. And, you know, it's obviously a recipe for disaster. And, you know, the people who pay for that are the patients. You know, and they're unwitting. They have no idea. They just, like you said, they just assume, well, this person has done all of the things that they need to do to be the person taking care of me. And, you know, they could potentially be very, very wrong. Now, so tell me, what exactly, how do I want to phrase this? So tell me more about your platform, what you're running on. I love that it's grassroots, that you know, these are my favorite platforms, because it's so real and it's so connected to who we really are as communities and as people. So tell me a little bit more about your platform, some of the things that you want to see happen as a Congresswoman.
Yeah, well, I've built it from a high level on the values of truth, justice, and unity in America. And those have been, you know, again, overused terms, and a good theme to my campaign is going to be using those terms and turning them back on exactly what the left is trying to say, but they're not fulfilling those things. So I think when it comes, I've gotten some pushback on the justice and unity. Everybody loves truth, but with unity, you know, you hear Biden say, you know, when he takes office, I seek not to divide, but to unite. And I would say our country is the most disunited country I've ever experienced. And so, but I don't think you can just push unity on people. You have to have truth and justice, true truth and justice, to be able to have unity in our country. And you can't just push justice and get rid of and censor certain aspects of truth. So related to those things, you know, I'm going to be talking about COVID. I'm going to talk about election integrity. I'm going to talk about these things that I think we are being censored on related to truth, but also related to justice. You know, I am a Republican. I'm very anti-abortion. I think that's an injustice that we are seeing in our community that's not talked about as an injustice necessarily. And related to that, I think that Republicans get a lot of, you know, pushback from the left related to, well, you don't care about the baby once they're born, or you don't care about the mother. But I think that is just not true. One, there's so many pregnancy resource centers that I think we could definitely designate money to rather than Planned Parenthood that does help the mom and does help the baby. And I believe in helping the adoption process not be so expensive and not be so, you know, challenging to do. But specifically something that I think might resonate with you, and I'm curious to know your feedback on this, is there was a Democrat bill in 1994 called the Crime Bill. And it sounds really good if you just kind of like read through it real quick, even as a Republican, because they're really, you know, labeling it as like, we want to stop violent crime. But there's these little, you know, nuances within the bill that you really have to dig for, that go down into stuff like the weight of cocaine that someone possesses is directly affecting what the consequences of the action is. So if you have a certain amount of weight, then you could potentially have life in prison, or even there's a certain number of times that this can happen that you could even get the death penalty. I'm not sure if that's actually getting pushed, but
Hmm.
there's a certain level of just having a certain amount of cocaine on you. And unfortunately, I've heard this from multiple Black people that, if in the lower income neighborhoods, they smoke
Hmm.
crack cocaine, which none of this is
Hmm.
good, but it's
Hmm.
all bad, I would say. And so
Right.
crack cocaine is a mixture, so it has a heavier weight. Whereas, the pure form of cocaine is going to be a lot lighter, but I would argue as a nurse, it's a lot more
Hmm.
pungent to the system. It could kill you
Sure.
immediately by taking it. So I
Right.
think we need to dig into these things that the Democrats have done kind of under wraps. And David
Hmm.
Price, the incumbent, and Biden voted and pushed this bill forward. It was a Democrat bill. And I think we need to bring light to the fact that the Democrats are not trying to help the minorities. They are not trying to help the lower income people. They're trying to help the elite and the tech geniuses of today. I just saw a
Hmm.
meme where it talked about like the 10 people that were, say, billionaires now are trillionaires, and they're all white men. Like,
Mm.
they're preaching this, we're helping the minorities, we're helping the women,
Right.
but they're not. It's
No.
disgusting and it's full of lies. And we need to again flip the script and show that Republicans are the party for minorities. If you have a
Hmm.
pure democracy, well, they're the minority. So if we start voting on just numbers, the white men are gonna win.
Right.
And so I'm
Right.
not against white men. I'm just for Republic, and I'm for the people. And I think
Sure.
every person should have a voice. And so when it comes to injustices, I really want to dig into those truths and talk about how we can really bring justice in America.
Oh, that is so appreciated and so needed. And, once again, I find myself like nodding so hard, my neck is going to break because I agree. I agree with you so much on what you're saying. And, what people keep failing to realize is what we've been saying for quite some time here. If you look at all of these cities that are in absolute peril, ridden with crime, these are Democrat run cities. And the hard truth of the matter is that the Democrats do not want people to come out from underneath their thumbs. They don't
Yeah.
want them out of poverty. They don't want them to succeed. They don't want that, because if they do, they won't need them anymore. And the sooner that the people in these communities would understand this and realize this, and realize that Republicans are not the enemy. I think every outdated view of Republicans as, stodgy, ancient, old white men running the world. And yes, that was pretty much true for a long period of time. But now we have the Courtney Giels of the world coming in and saying, no, 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 this is not how it's going to be. And there's so many young, if you don't mind me calling you young, nobody should be insulted by being called young,
okay.
right? Young is good. Young is good.
I'm 31 for anybody who wants to know.
Okay, yeah, so you're still a baby to me, but a very accomplished baby, more accomplished than I am. So, no disrespect intended there at all. But you have this, and this is what's so exciting to me to watch, to see these new, young, authentic and real people, everyday people coming in saying, no, 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 this is not how it's going to be run anymore. We're coming in and we're going to do this right. We're going to fix all of the things. It's going to take time and it's going to be really, really hard. But I see y'all rolling up your sleeves and ready to attack it. And I think that is exactly what we need. Here's probably an almost unanswerable question, and no pressure or anything, but do
I like
you
these
ever good? Yeah. Okay. Do you ever see, because I don't, I'm going to preface and say, I don't see it right now. Do you think there's ever going to be a time where Democrats, the Democrats of today, is there ever going to be unity? Are we ever going to meet in the middle and actually work together? I mean, because we have such, I think conservatives and Republicans are actually, as a whole, the modern conservative Republican is somewhat of a moderate. We're not going to touch certain things, but we're going hard for the core values that are really important and matter. But boy, oh boy, the left has leaned so far that they're not even standing. You know what I mean? It's so
Right.
insane. How do we meet in the middle with people like this? I don't understand it. I don't know how. Any
Yeah.
ideas?
I think that there are genuine Democrats that really want to say help immigrants. I mean, I've gone to church with people who will adamantly argue that the Democrat Party is better than the Republican Party, and I don't see that. But I do think there are genuine Democrats who love the Lord and they love people, and they see where the Democrat Party likes to say give money or give help to people who are hurting, and that's a biblical value. Personally, I feel like the church needs to step. Money is going to go towards that. It's going to go, if a Democrat is in power, it's going to go to Planned Parenthood, and that's disgusting to me. If a Republican is in role, it's probably going to go to something that a Democrat doesn't want their taxes going towards. So why can't we decrease taxes, decrease the power of the federal government, and give the power to the people where they can give their money where they choose? But as far as your answer to can we have unity, I do think there are probably, I mean, we see this with Manchin, we see this with, you know, other Democrats that really are seeing, they're seeing probably the points that I'm making right now of like, we do want to help these immigrants, but we want to prevent the spread of COVID. You know, let's be logical about this. Let's not spend, you know, $3 to $5 trillion when we're already in debt. There's some logic in some Democrats, and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine with us having a little difference of opinion, because that's just, I believe, to the answer of your question, it boils down to my personal worldview is that we're all sinners, and we're all going to have flaws, and we're all going to have different opinions, and we're all reflecting God differently. So there's good and bad in that. And so I do think there's some Democrats that you can work with that do create some kind of unity, because it's almost like iron sharpening iron, where we can give each other different perspectives. And I do believe if we can actually push the truth out and actually make it known, you're going to see some unity in different parties. Where I don't think that we're going to see unity is just that ultimate worldview of we have a lot of sinners who want power, want money, and could care less about the people, but they dress it up like they care about people to get that power. So the only way we really fight that is by exposing those people. And so I don't think we're going to ultimately have perfect unity, but I do think we need to strive for unity, because we're the United States of America, and that's why we've had strength for so long.
I like that. That gives me hope. That gives me a promise of a better future, knowing that people like you, and even people like you on the opposite side of the fence, on the Democrat side, that want the same things, even if they're slightly different, you know, views or ways to get there. So that's a good feeling. Tell me, or actually tell everybody, how can we find you? Where can we see you next? How can we support you?
Yeah, well, my website is CourtneyGielsForCongress.com. So if you're local, I would say even with an hour's driving distance, and you want to help flip a blue seat, go to my website and sign up to volunteer. We are going to need lots of volunteers. I have so many ideas on how to really outreach to the community, because this is going to have to be a very manual effort, because the news is not helping us. So as far as locations, also if you're local, they're going to have it's still considered District 4, because that's what it previously was, but they're going to have a district meeting on January 27th at the Durham GOP headquarters, where we're going to have a little bit of a town hall debate with the primary candidates. So if you're local and want to come to that, I would surely appreciate it. But also, if everyone that's listening can follow me on social media, on everything, Twitter, Instagram, Getter, I am at Courtney Giels, and then Facebook, it's Courtney Giels for Congress. So I really appreciate the time, and I hope we can work together to flip this seat and, you know, bring unity back to our country.
Outstanding. Courtney, thank you so much for coming on, taking time out of your day to chat with me. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to see everything that you're going to do. I have lots of faith in you and high hopes. So best of luck to you, and we're going to keep watching you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. Talk soon. Take care. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Isn't she amazing? Absolutely love her. Get over on social media, all of your social media platforms. Go follow her, show her some support, and share, do all of the things, like, follow, share, all of the good things. And let's get this country back on track together, huh? Thanks for watching today. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, focus on.
That's not necessarily a good thing to start
Yeah,
with.
they're stating it wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s or.
It happened before the election because there's too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoing is going to.
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out their lies.
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not